So my name is Linda Wiklund, and I work as a school counselor in a school where the students are between 13 and 15, 16. And I've been in the project for like 2 years. So I wasn't in the project from the start, but I'm representing the school health. And I guess I contribute with my profession and ideas. I think in order for these young people to be given the same chances for a life with good conditions to get an education, get a job, and be able to have good relationships, it's very important that adults who meet children and young people learn to approach them and have an open mind and a great understanding for what they are or have been exposed to. This is also so not to risk that traumatizing these young people again. So knowledge, I think it's very important, just how you can be able to pick up signals in children and young people who are vulnerable and give them help and ensure that the professions that needs to step in and cooperate and help these children are very important. We know for the fact that children who have difficult home conditions and are exposed to trauma are at greater risk of ending up in exclusion, school problems, lower or without grades, rarely higher education, and are in a greater risk of ending up in exclusion in adulthood. And it's also not uncommon for them to become addicted to drugs and alcohol and have poor relationships with other people. I have gained perspective on how different it can look depending on which country you live in. And this is the thing, I have always considered Sweden to have a good and function system of government where children, young people should be given conditions to develop and become functioning adults one day. But through their project, I know that it's not always the case, and that unfortunately there are children and young people who, we call it, fall between the chairs, and that we adults need to get better in catching up and dare to talk about and with the children and their families. So I think that the project can not do this to highlight and make adults who work with children, young people, aware of how important it is to help, support, and ensure that the resources are available to create conditions for these children who often struggle with conditions like concentration, attention, and presence at school. So because we know that school is often the safest place and perhaps the place where children can relax, and not very rare that it's in school, many children get their own meal in a day. So I guess it's given me perspective in how it works in Sweden and in other countries. So I don't know, it highlights things that I've been taking for granted in our systems, and I've been thinking that everything is working good, but I know that it's not always that, and that we have a lot to learn from other countries. I believe that I have learned about what it looks like in Europe and how many children and young people, how many they are who are excluded because we adults do not have enough or lack of knowledge about how trauma affects our children and young people. Since I work with children and young people in very vulnerable situations and know how important it is that there are adults who dare to meet them and help these children. and not be afraid to talk to them. So what has affected me during this time, is just how visible it becomes with how many children we have who suffer from trauma when we lift up and really focus on how we can discover and help our children and young people. So I see through all the countries how many children that we have who suffer. And I get happy that the project is lifting this up. But I get a little bit sad because the children are the future. They are supposed to bring the future. And so, but I think that's the most impact it has personally for me, to see how it is, because we're not so far from each other. So, and yeah, so I think that's the most, just to realize how many kids we have who suffer. But it gives hope that we lift it up. Yeah, actually there is. We were in Spain, and they talked about how the school system in Spain, in Cerceda, I think it was, how the school's responsibility for the kids and the families, if the young people have been exposed or experienced violence at home, then it's the school's, the school need to contact the police, the social service. So it's how many that the school bears to make responsibility. So that really surprised me, because here in Sweden the school have a big responsibility for the children because they are here from Monday to Friday all the days. But if the kids are exposed or traumatized, it's social service who has the main responsibility for the kids. So I was really surprised of that. I absolutely believe that that what the project has produced and compiled both knowledge about how trauma affects children, but also how we can practically work into increase collaboration between different authorities to strengthen the conditions and a positive development for our ACE children. In my organization, we have worked very hard to help the children and young people who don't have good home conditions. We know we have like 500 students here, but we know those students who have a poor home and cannot be able to sit at home during the lockdown we had of the school. So because we are aware that not everyone has the same conditions in their home, so I think we are no more during the COVID, we have learned and how to see and act around the kids who are having poor home relationships and not having adults who can help them, or they don't have the internet to do it, or they are traumatized, so they have problem in learning. So we make sure that they could come to school anyway. The thing is that what I can see during this last year of COVID, how it impacts the kids, they are quite stressed up anyway through all the social medias, and they have to be perfect on every level. But what happened is that functional families have stopped function because of that they have to be working from home. So it makes a pressure and stressing out the home situation. So that is what we have seen a lot of, that just around the alcohol consumption has raised, and a lot of violence in the home has also raised in in Sweden and in our very small community. So I actually I had to help the social service for 2 months because they couldn't bear to take care of everything that came in. I think to have been able to share knowledge and experience with the partner countries, and also to gain new knowledge about how collaboration can be facilitated if, for example, an agreement on secrecy is reached between authorities. Since we have, in Sweden, we have really strict about the secrecy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it is to protect the families and the individual person, but many times, like I know in Britain, you got this between school and police, they have made an agreement to lower that, so you can faster react and take care of kids. So I think that's one of the things that I really would like to see here in Sweden, because I know it will help kids faster without all those laws about integrity and things. I know it's important, but I think you have to know the purpose with it. It is to help them. So